Hello everyone, my name is Yazmin and my partner for today is Jazmin. I'm Yazmin with the Y and she's Jazmin with the J, so slight difference. Today, Jazmin and I are going to be reviewing Mause Part 2 by Art Spiegelman. And honestly, I would say this book is crazy emotional. I don't think it's something that you just simply read. I think it's extremely powerful that you can actually feel it. So this part of the book that we're reviewing is mostly about Vladlik inside Auschwitz, and this involves everything that he had to do in order to survive. We see that all the trauma that he experienced doesn't go away simply just when the war ends, because I mean the Holocaust was a horrifying event that had happened. I think it's just so scary and so sad how one human being could put others through something as horrific as the Holocaust. We read about these stories, we hear these survivor stories, and they're very strong people for surviving what they went through, and I respect them so much for it. They're very extremely strong people. And even though that this individual did survive the Holocaust, the trauma doesn't go away. Like I said previously, it didn't go away right when the war ended. The trauma, carried on with through the rest of his life, and it also affected some of his relationships. For example, his relationship with his son Art. And I think what hit me the most is that even though Art didn't actually live through the Holocaust, he still carries it with him because, having someone so close to it, have gone through it, having someone, telling you all these stories firsthand, like, I can't imagine how scary that must have feel. Imagine, like, waking up every single day after going through something like that and living in that fear that will never go away. It's so sad. But yeah, art still feels like he carries it. I feel like it just got passed down, and sometimes he doesn't know how to deal with that. So yeah, we wanted to share our thoughts about how the story isn't just about surviving the Holocaust back then, but how surviving that event actually does affect you for the rest of your life. I honestly think that this book makes you think a lot deeper about your family, your memories, and then I just, in general, what people don't talk about even when it hurts them the most.
Hello, guys. You guys just heard from my project partner, Yazmin. My name is Jazmin, and I want to talk about why I recommend this book. So, we're specifically focusing on part 2, but I do recommend this book as a whole. I think it's a really powerful way to learn about the Holocaust. Even if you've learned about it before, if you haven't read this book, I think that it's important to feel the emotion behind it. I think that Spiegelman did a great job illustrating his father's pain and how that pain carried on to him. I think he did a great job illustrating how the pain didn't end when the war ended. The trauma didn't end when the war ended. It continued on to generations. And it also shows how he has a lot of guilt behind his father's pain. He feels guilty for not being there, for not also being a victim of the Holocaust. I think that it's a great book because it doesn't sugarcoat the Holocaust. He is raw, he is honest, and I think that it does a great job at just illustrating the true history behind the Holocaust. I think that Art is really honest, or Spiegelman is really honest in his struggles, in his emotional, or in his emotions and his inherited pain. I think that it's a heavy, emotional, and personal book to read, but it's what makes it unforgettable. Again, if you haven't read it, I think you definitely should.
All right, so one of the moments that really stuck with me, I do want to start from this quote from Art, and he said, I know this is insane, but I somehow wish I had been in Auschwitz with my parents so I could really know what they lived through. I don't know. I think this is just wow. Like hearing someone say that is just heartbreaking, you know. Somebody just saying that they wish they went through the Holocaust. That's so sad, but you know, obviously with the way that he grew up and he saw how all that trauma stuck with his family, it's so devastating. Art feels guilty just for having a normal life. And, you know, sadly, that's something that a lot of kids of survivals feel. They kind of feel like they don't have the right to complain, you know, really for anything because their parents had to live through something 100 times worse. And, you know, I can see why they would feel like that. You know, I can't imagine my parents, you know, having had gone through the Holocaust. I wouldn't even want to mention my slightest problems because it's like, you know, you have these tiny little problems when somebody so close to you went through an event like the Holocaust. It's just very sad. Another quote that did stick to me is, "But here God didn't come. We were all on our own." And that line just hit me because it really just shows how abandoned they felt, you know. They had no help. They felt no sort of hope or any faith at all. And they were just trying to survive by the second, you know. And I think that's just such a scary way to live in constant fear, not knowing, you know, if you were going to be alive the next second or not. When you read that and then see it in the drawings, it feels so much more real. It really does, you know, hit you harder. But actually, I think that's why the graphic memoir style works because, I mean, it would still be understandable if it was written as a normal book. You know, obviously the text itself is powerful, but I think that this style really like helps us understand and feel them more because we see the fear in their faces, and we see how tiny they look when everything else against them is just so crazy that you know they were living like that, that their bodies were like that, and they were it's just so mind-boggling to me, and it's just so sad. It really hits you. This all just reminds us that the Holocaust wasn't even that long ago, and again, back to what I was saying earlier, it just reminds us that the trauma doesn't ever disappear. It just gets passed on. This book honestly changes the way you think about history, and it kind of like changes your perspective on some things too. You know, I know some of mine did, but it's not something that just happened and went away. Like, not at all. It's something that still sadly affects people today and will continue affecting people because how could something like this not? And I truly do sympathize for all the people that had to go through it, that for those that weren't able to make it, and for the survivors, you know, I applaud them for how strong they are. And I just hope that future generations are able to enjoy their lives and not feel, you know, bad, or like I said earlier, not feeling like they have the right to complain because of what had happened. I hope that, you know, that the descendants of these survivors enjoy their lives to their fullest and live it up for their ancestors and everything that they had gone through.
Now I want to talk about why the graphic memoir really matters. Um, I think that Spiegelman's choice to draw the Germans as cats and the Jews as mice was really with intent. It also changed my views, my perspective, my opinion on comics. I think that him making this a comic made it to where comics can be a serious form of literature. Not only did it change my mind, it could change a lot of people's mind on that. I never truly saw comics as a serious form of literature until I read this book. So I think that's really important. And I also think that the way that he chose to illustrate it, the images that he chose really stay in your mind. It doesn't just, you don't just read about the trauma, you get to see it too. And that's why this memoir is important. And I think that it hits differently than if it would have just been words. So the story of the Holocaust, the facts of the Holocaust, they're important to tell, they're important to know, and him making it a comic was an important detail, and I don't think that it would have had the same effect had it been only words. So I think that he did a really good job storytelling, um, combining it with the emotions behind the actual pictures. Some questions I have for you all is, how do you feel Spiegelman's choice of using animals affected your emotional response to this book? So him using the cats as the Germans and the mice as the Jews, did that change the way you felt reading the book? Second thing is, do you guys think that Art's guilt is justifiable? Do you think it's misplaced? Him feeling guilty for not going through what his father went through, and his mother. Um, what are your guys' thoughts on that? And how does the use of comics challenge traditional ideas on what serious literature is?